It's 4 o'clock in Los Angeles. It's 6 o'clock in Chicago. And it's 7 p.m. in the Big Apple, New York City. Hello, everybody. I'm Mad Dog the Scipio. This is America's Popcast. What's the buzz? And tonight, I am joined once again by her royal pain in the assness, Amelia, the Pitbull Chapman. How do I want to know? How are you, Amelia?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm fine, young lady. You stay out of trouble today?
Today, yes.
You didn't get fired today?
Nope.
Please don't. Tomorrow is your 90 days there. You want to at least collect a little insurance?
Yep.
Good God.
At
Dan,
least,
you don't know what I got to put up with this woman.
at
You
least I
really
didn't
just
yell at
don't.
any Harris supporters today.
Our special guest returning is my brother from another mother. He is a Pulitzer Prize winning author. And his greatest credit, ladies and gentlemen, is he's a nice guy and he's my friend, Dan Lazada. Dan,
He's our
welcome
friend,
back
yeah.
to the podcast.
Hello, Amelia. Thanks for having me back
Hello.
again.
I love having you here. We got a good one for you tonight. This is right up your alley, brother. We got a good one. Tonight's show, Hidden in Plain Sight and National Treasures and Secrets, Cryptic Symbolism and the Mysteries of the Universe. Hidden in plain sight all around you, right under your nose, Pitbull. Right there,
Right.
right under your nose. Yep. We are going to talk about what makes for a good conspiracy. Well, this is the start of one. I will tell you for sure. Who's the, oh, man. Oh, Leon
Hey,
is
Leon,
already,
welcome.
I'm not 5 minutes into the show and Leon's here. Hey, how are you, brother? Joined by Doodlebug. Yes, we are on Doodlebug. We are on a whole bunch of places, as a matter of fact. Did you know that, Amelia, that we're on a platform called Doodlebug?
That's a new one. That's fantastic.
Yeah, Doodlebug, Pod Owl, Listen Notes, Audible.com. We're like horse shit. We're spread everywhere. Anyway, gonna be a good one. Gonna be a good one tonight. Hidden in plain sight. Dan, I'm going right to you on this one. You're a guy who has literally written and investigated this subject matter up close and personal. Let's talk about what makes for. Let me back up. What makes for a better story? The conspiracy mindedness of the story, or the fact that it's true?
Well, I suppose, for me, I would always be looking for what is true. So the conspiracy is what when you do investigative reporting, or if you're a good detective, or whatever your inclination is to search out for answers, you're always going from the conspiracy toward what you can prove. And the conspiracy is the theory and the idea that gets you started looking at something. And
Yeah.
I've found that in my work over the many decades that hidden in plain sight is a good description for a lot of things that go on, not just symbology and not just hidden secrets and things we can see, but the way people behave and what they are and what they appear to be.
Oh boy, that's a Pandora's box. Holy shit. Boy, you open up a can of worms with that. You could easily. Boy, Amelia, you're talking about a rabbit hole. We've done the down around and a few rabbit holes, but I'll tell you what, this is one subject that will open up other rabbit holes to an infinite, gigantic rabbit hole from which you will never emerge, because it just keep spiraling out of control. Dan, when we were off air, you and I and Amelia were talking about the Denver airport. You wrote about the Denver airport and its opening.
We
covered that story. I want to get from your perspective in just a second what it was like to cover that. And then Amelia and I, we dealt with the aftermath of it, having to try to dissect the truth from fiction, fact from fact and reality from rumor and innuendo.
Right.
So let's ask you the magic bullet question, which is: Is there a secret city underneath the Denver airport?
Well, if there's a secret city underneath the Denver airport, I haven't toured there. But what I did do when I went to work in Denver in 1990, the airport and the building of the airport was my first assignment. So it was always surrounded by controversy and ideas about conspiracy. But the first part of that had to do with where the airport was going to be built, who was going
Oh,
to build it, and
Yes.
owned the land that it was going to be built on. So the Denver airport started out with a lot of controversy. You know, Denver had a pocket airport near the downtown for a long time, was very convenient, but the airport that they built takes you a good 45 minutes to get to from downtown Denver. So
Well, that was another. That's something else that was perplexing to us. Why build an airport literally? And you know this to be true. It's literally in the middle of nowhere.
well, you got to drive halfway to Kansas from Denver to get to it.
Yeah, you. I mean, it's the
wow.
airport is in the middle of literally nowhere, and then there's the airport, and then there's nowhere again. Because I
Well,
mean, that's all that's around it. There's nothing there.
Wow.
Nowhere's been catching up with the airport for a while because the building the building that began after the airport was built, of course, was very attractive to people, and all of those people that owned land around there and who were politically savvy enough to buy up property before it got really expensive. They were the
Yeah.
original conspirators, I guess you would say.
Oh,
But
Well,
the
the idea. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dan. Go
But
ahead.
the rumors have existed forever about what was going on at the Denver airport. And I think some of the questions about that always surface in major projects, multi-billion dollar projects,
Oh boy.
is who's making money off of it. So I think the
wow.
airport was born in a degree
Yeah.
of controversy. And from there, you know, a lot of the mystic kind of questions about what was really
Yeah.
there and what was underneath the tunnels that carried baggage from one concourse to the other. I think a lot of
Yeah.
different rumors were stoked over the years about
Mm.
what could be under there.
Yeah. Well, me and I, like I
Wow.
said, we've done three 2-hour
Yes.
shows on Denver. I will tell you that we showed the video, we showed the road systems
Yes.
with traffic underneath the airport. The magic question is who's making money on it? The answer is simple. That's the easy question. Everybody's making money on it. Everybody. What's under there? If you listen to some people, the really out there conspiracy people, they'll tell you that they're shuttling aliens from portal to portal. The other people will tell you that they're building a Mount Weather like infrastructure underneath. Well, actually, we're going to talk about Mount Weather tonight because that's one of those places hiding in plain sight. But Denver is a fascinating place. I mean, we could do a whole show again on Denver, but we got
Oh, yeah.
so much to cover. You and I, Dan, spoke a little bit about South Dakota. I believe it's where Mount Rushmore is. I forget that particular area in South Dakota, but that area has been steeped in secrecy for years too.
Yeah.
From the people who the man who built Mount Rushmore, to the potential secrets that may be hidden behind Abraham Lincoln's head. And we know that there's a tunnel there for because you can see it. But from the beginning, it was said that I believe his name was Bertram Gormlin. Is that was the guy that built Mount Rushmore? Amelia, find that out for me. I think his name was Bertram Gormlin or some name like that. But they say he was a neo-Nazi racist. He was a member of the Klan, Ku Klux Klan, that was responsible for putting and interestingly, it's funny because if you look at the four men that were chosen for that, they were all white, essentially white slave owners is what they were. What's his name?
The sculptor was Gutzon
Borglum, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it, Borglum. I know I was close.
Yes.
Your thoughts on that, Dan?
Well, once again, like the Denver airport, the whole area started out in controversy because of the hole in the wall gang, because that area around
Yeah.
there is surrounded by these ravines and canyons and things that are practically impenetrable. And so the outlaws of the past, the Butch Cassidys and Sundance Kids and various others were hiding out there. And so, it was also an area that was covered in mystique. I can't say that I know a lot about secret chambers and things going on behind Abraham Lincoln or others on
Yeah.
Mount Rushmore, but certainly I've been there on a couple of occasions, and the magnificence of the sculpture certainly draws a lot of attention. So
Yeah,
you
for
might miss
sure.
what's going on behind the scenes.
Well, if you by the way, they call it the Hall of Records. And if you Google that or go on Yahoo, Bing, or any search engine that you choose, if you search in Mount Rushmore Hall of Records, it will take you to an aerial view of the back of Abraham Lincoln's head. There are stairs to get in. It's an open chamber, and it goes deep inside the back of Abraham Lincoln's head, where you can clearly see some sort of altar or pillar of some sort with documents on it. You and I, you know what, Amelia, write that down. Hall of Records. We'll get the picture of Hall of Records for Dan. The other thing, talking about hiding in plain sight. And I'm glad I brought this to your attention. People don't understand this too. Devil's Tower, Wyoming. You've all seen it in the movie E.T. Oh, by the way, that reminded me. Hollywood lost another one today. Terry Garr.
Yes.
Terry Garr, who was in E.T., one of my favorite movies, Tootsie, and she was also in
Mr. Mom.
Yeah, exactly. She was in she's been
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah, Close Encounters, exactly. I love that movie. And we're talking about that Devil's Tower, Wyoming, the prominent scene in that film where Richard Dreyfuss builds Devil's Tower out of mashed potatoes. And people, I guess that you would have to know, but people who don't know, let me smarten you up, as they say. I'll educate you a little bit. There is Devil's Tower, Wyoming is hollow. It was a solid structure. It was declared a national monument by Teddy Roosevelt, and it was immediately commissioned to house essentially spy agencies and the military, and that's who occupy it now. Just as they do NORAD, Cheyenne Mountain. Cheyenne Mountain looks like a beautiful mountain, and it is an absolutely gorgeous mountain on the outside. But inside is bustling, hustling, bustling with military infrastructure. It is the NORAD command center. And people go past there every day and don't know it. But we have isolated the entrance and exit tunnels, and we showed that on our show. I'm so proud that we did that. And we did it with no help from NORAD. Thank you very much. We didn't need any help from NORAD to find it. Thank you. Interesting stuff because, again, the people who live in that valley, Dan, most of them don't even know that NORAD is literally in their backyard, which is a scary proposition. Talk to me about why that was chosen.
Well, I can't say except that they were able to dig deep into the heart of the mountain to develop survivable space. I think for people who were might be affected by nuclear war.
Yeah, exactly. In other words, the people that counted, the people with money. Yeah, they're the ones who. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about
political leaders.
One of the shows that is hot on our list is, and we're going to hit it first thing running in 2025, are deep underground military base system. They're called DUMS. If there was ever an acronym that fit, that's perfect. DUMS. deep underground military base system. Leave it the military to come up with something called dumbs. The other thing is the number of secret installations hollowed out for the wealthy and powerful, while the rest of us, shelter in place or try to find some place in the woods that's not contaminated.
Get under our desks in the schoolroom, right?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Let's talk about this: the national treasures and secrets, cryptic symbolism, and the mysteries of the universe hidden in plain sight all around you. Amelia,
Yes.
questions for Big Dan the Man Lazada.
Yeah, well, I know that a lot of things are hidden in plain sight for us, but it's like they don't expect us to see it. But with the picture and everything right in front of us, I mean, do you think that they think that we're that dumb not to find it, especially these days?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So
If that's the case, Dan, boy, do I got a question for you. If that's the case, if a picture is truly worth 1,000 words, somebody spent a lot of time, energy, and put a lot of brain power into designing our currency. Because our currency, brother, is steeped in secret symbolism to the point where even today, if you take the original $20 bill that was commissioned back in 22 or 23,
Mhm.
if you take that $20 bill and fold it today
Yes.
and fold another one side by side, you'll see the Twin Towers smoking and hit right at the same junction point. How does that happen? Or is that just some kind of funky coincidence? And if it is, why can you do that with any number of bills? But that's another story. Go ahead.
interesting thought.
It's the truth.
And especially CERN,
It's
have
the
you
truth.
noticed that the symbols of CERN are all 3 6s?
Yeah. That's just you can't make this shit up. I
Mhm.
promise you that when I tell you that. You cannot. We actually showed it on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Haven't
Take
we
a
always historically been interested in things we can't explain or don't understand, or things that are mystical and create symbols for us? And I think that's been part of the American DNA for dating back to the days of scares over witches
Yeah.
and things that made people frightened, and
Well,
a
it's
lot of that.
interesting
I
that
think
you
that
say that. It's
it,
it's quite interesting you say that, and I want you to fire with both barrels on this one. Almost all of our founding fathers were either Masons or had some
Yes.
connection to Scottish Rite. Okay. That being said, if you look today here in 2024, and it hasn't changed over the centuries, if you look today, almost every letter in the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, almost all the literature that they drafted from the beginning to today has in it reference to the supreme being. They don't. Nobody says God anymore. It's the supreme
No.
being. God forbid you should say God. Talks about even to the point where George Washington is seen wearing a Masonic skirt. All of the early stuff was all drafted by Masons, and our currency, which we still use today, was drafted by and designed by and approved by Masons. And they are a symbolic, secretively symbolic tribe, for lack of a better word. And they really are. You go try to barnstorm a Mason meeting You're not going to get in. You'll get killed before you get in. Talk to me about that.
Well, haven't we always been interested in secret societies and
Yeah,
organizations
especially here.
that create the aura of loyalty and speciality and also exclusion in many ways? I mean, when we think about it, when I, with my investigative background, think about hiding in plain sight and not seeing what's going on, I think about things like that, organizations that have their secretive side and allow certain people to see certain things, and that um, enables us, I think, or enables these organizations to move behind the scenes out of the clear view. And that's what I think leads often to concerns about conspiracy, as we've talked about before, the idea that we don't understand what's happening. We can be directed in one direction or another to believe this or to believe that.
Yes.
But I have seen the effectiveness of hiding in plain sight throughout my long career. It happens in organizations. As I told you, I was deeply involved with people who were involved in organized crime, and of course they had to operate in the aura of secrecy. And my mentor and guide through that Chicago network owned a paint and tile warehouse, and it was his front business, and during the rest of the time he was orchestrating jewel thefts and things like that. But
my kind of guy.
yeah, right.
My kind of guy.
But hiding in plain sight with his work clothes on and selling paint and tile to a few people that came into the warehouse, since they never did any advertising. The FBI was the most frequent visitor.
Captain Miserable has a question for you. Who do you think built the Sage Wall in Montana? Now, I know a little bit about that, but I want you to take that one.
Now, that's a new one for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You know what? We should do we can actually do an entire show. Masons also use a special font you can recognize just by the A. And he's absolutely right. Melia, questions for Dan or comments? What do you think about all this, Melia? Hiding in plain sight. What do you make of all this crazy?
I think that it's unbelievable that it's still, to this day, we're still finding a lot of clues, because I think that if you go see something, it's not as good as if you take pictures, because when you take a picture, you can actually see more. Correct? Am I correct? It's because you could actually take it with you and find something that you didn't see when you were actually looking at it. Correct?
Absolutely. Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, you're shaking your head in the affirmative. Let's expound upon that, Dan.
Well, the comment just made me think of these cartoon drawings that used to be in the newspaper. Maybe they still are. The hidden pictures, where you take a look at two pictures and one of them they're different, but you have to look at them really hard to see which one is different. So maybe one has a newspaper rolled up and one doesn't, and all kinds of things like that.
Dan, are you old enough to remember, as I am, and I'll give my age away? I remember back in the day when I was a kid, the military, and you can't make this up, folks. The military used to have, they had a working relationship with the press, the media, particularly newspapers, when newspapers were it in America. You read it in the paper, it was true, by God.
Absolutely.
So, and there were, you had Lil Abner, you had Beetle Bailey, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And like, newspaper cartoons, all these different kind of newspaper cartoons. The military used to use the newspapers to pass secrets. People don't remember that. Dan, you're old enough, you're probably around my age, right? I'm 65.
I got you by a few years. Yeah.
I'm sure you do, brother. But I'm 65 and I remember that. Because I'm old enough to remember, of course, Vietnam and all the shit that happened in Korea and God, what a mess that was. Anyway, I digress. But the military utilized the press. Talk about hiding in plain sight. They would get messages from one person, one place to another, using what they called the funny papers.
Yeah.
People don't understand where the name the funny papers came. They didn't come, ladies and gentlemen, because they were actually funny, because most of these cartoons weren't. They were witty, but it doesn't sound right calling them the witty papers. The funny paper sounds a lot better. The funny papers came about by the stuff the military was infiltrating inside these, cartoons like Little Abner and Beetle Bailey and Blondie and all kinds of stuff like that. God, I'm so
a family
old.
circus or whatever
really
they were
feel
doing
old.
for that
In
day.
times like this, I really feel old, brother.
I remember when the Sunday paper was like that thick.
Oh yeah.
You're lucky
Yep.
if you can find a paper now. Are you shitting me?
You're right.
Dan, your thoughts on that? Tell people that I'm not nuts.
Well, I certainly know that from my own research that there have been many methods used to hide things in plain sight. I'm not specifically familiar with the military's use of cartoons, but I certainly am familiar with the CIA's activities in passing messages and information and keeping people hidden in plain sight, including domestically within our country, even though that was illegal.
Dan, are you aware? I want to. This is really, and I read this and heard this from several people. And you're the guy to ask. You are probably the only guy to ask. Are you aware? We all know that Hollywood and Washington D.C. have a working relationship and have for many, many years.
Decades.
Yeah, decades, a long time together. Are you aware, Dan, of the military's use of how do I want to put this as eloquently as I can, using the film business to propagate certain points of view, using the film and television industry to not only pass messages but to receive messages, to how do I want to say it? To
indoctrinate?
That's a great fucking word. Yeah. to jab us, yes, to indoctrinate us. Can you pick up on that point?
Certainly. One of the things that when I was doing the book, The Manchurian Journalist, was one of the things that I looked at was the influence over the film industry. And prior to World War II, there were two individuals who were named to a film review board under the Roosevelt administration. That was Lowell Mellett. He was from Alexandria, Indiana, which is just up the road from my hometown, and also Nelson Pointer. And Nelson Pointer is a famous American journalist who owned a good number of newspapers, and the Pointer Institute, which is the institutional representation of journalism these days, was named after him. But he and Lowell Mellett were censors of the Hollywood film industry going into World War II. And if you look back at what they did, one of the things they did was that they promoted films that were positive toward Russia. As we were moving into the late 30s, they were very supportive. They held Russian ideas up for approval, and the Russians were painted as our allies. But those films began to change over a period of time, so that as more communist concerns, more concerns about Stalin and those sorts of things, and about what was likely to happen after World War II, the attitudes began to shift, and they were represented in the film industry, in movies that were being approved or not approved. And Mellett and Pointer had the authority to nix films from being shown in the United States that didn't represent attitudes that they thought were appropriate. So they were working behind the scenes, hidden in plain sight, with attitudes that were influencing what was produced and what wasn't produced.
We'll talk about hiding in plain sight. Back in the day, there was a woman that gained some notoriety, quite a bit of notoriety, as a matter of fact. Her name was Amy Semple McPherson. And you know who I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And Amy Semple McPherson was a purported, and I use that term very loosely, a purported evangelist. Um, People say that she was nothing more than a conduit for the government because she was an enigmatic individual. She was able to talk loud, as they say, talk loud and draw a crowd. In my business, that's the catchphrase: talk loud and draw a crowd. Um, it doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter what you're saying. Just say it loud. If you say it loud enough, people will come, and they did to Amy Semple McPherson. And back in the 30s and 40s, back at the time when you know Hollywood was just getting a stronghold, Hollywood and the military brass of the day used this woman to do all their bidding for them. It was estimated then that at the time, and we're talking about in the 1920s and 30s, when there was an estimated 100 million people or so in America, that 1 out of every 3 people aligned themselves with Amy Semple McPherson. And we have the numbers here too, by the way, because we're doing that show.
Right.
That's a scary, staggering number. 1 in every 3 out of 100 million people. Okay. In case you can't do math, that's like about 70 million people. Okay. So talk to me about how the government and the powers that be, the indoctrinators, use religion hiding in plain sight to indoctrinate, to get their message across. And by the way, the Manchurian Journalist is a fucking staggering piece of journalistic, and I love that book. By the way, I'm gonna tell you, I love that book. It's a staggering piece of journalism that that and should point the finger squarely at the people responsible, which is the FBI, CIA. The CIA and the FBI, they have this love-hate relationship with each other. They have to work together, but sometimes they don't like it. But I think it's more adversarial these days than it's ever been. Because everybody wants to be top dog, in that business, in the cop business.
Oh,
They
yeah.
all want to be top dog. Talk to me, Dan, about how all of this craziness fits together, and I understand too, doing my research, that you were threatened a couple of times over this book.
Well, when you do investigative reporting, if you're serious about it, you don't have too much trouble finding people who make threatening comments. But I've never taken those very seriously, and so far things have worked out okay. But going back to your comment about Amy Semple McPherson and the use of people like evangelists and religious personalities, and people had sway. I grew up in an extremely strict evangelical environment, and I spent many a Wednesday night and evenings on week-long evangelistic crusades attending, and it was all about the power of persuasion. It was all about the ability to speak and convince people to believe in a certain way, and so while there may be good aspects to all that, and certainly the instilling of strong values in society is a positive thing, but also that power to persuade certainly has been recognized by those that want to influence the way we think and want to get people to think in a certain way and not in certain other ways. So Father Coughlin was another one who was on the radio, and Amy Semple McPherson on the radio, reaching so many people and influencing so many people as to what were the appropriate values. And as we talked about certain ideas about capitalism, democracy, communism, socialism, those sorts of things, the ability to influence and to have that infrastructure there to discourage certain ideas as well as encourage others has been extremely important to the government that we have and our organization of our culture.
Absolutely. Amelia, questions for Dan?
I
Or
know that.
commentary?
Well, we know that subliminal messages have been around for a while, but do you think that there is more now in the movies there has been than in the past?
Well, there was a famous book written called The Hidden Persuaders. And the idea, I remember going to drive-in theaters when I was a
Yes.
kid with the family and watching movies. And part of the controversy that existed then was what they called subliminal messages.
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
as within the film, there might be a frame or two that was flashed that you couldn't really see, but
Right.
might be of a steaming box of popcorn or or a soda or something that was supposed to make people want to get up and go to the concession stand, those sorts of things. But the hidden persuaders can be anywhere and designed in many ways, I think. For many
We had a show, Dan. I have to tell you about this. You're going to get a kick out of it. Amelia and I did a show. We had actually with us at the time an Episcopal priest. He was my nephew. Is Pastor Steve. He'll be joining us, by the way, election night and November 4th, Monday.
Yes.
But we were talking to him, and we did a show on hidden symbolism
Yes.
in marketing and media. For example, you'll be. I think you'll get tickled. The word they use down south. You'll be tickled by this.
It'll be tickle pink.
Google Play. The Google Play Store. Their symbol. I'm not making a word of this up, folks. Go look at. You think I'm kidding? Go look.
Not. I swear. I know where you're going.
The symbol for Google Play is the satanic gates of Satan seal.
Yes.
It's the seal of the gates of Satan. I'm not making this up. The Google symbol are 3 6s intertwined. You can't making it up. The symbol for CERN in Geneva, France, CERN is also made up of 3 cryptic symbols of 3 6s in each symbol.
Yes.
Which is crazy. But this is the kind of stuff we're talking about. Wendy's hamburgers. The necklace around her neck says mom on it. It never said mom before. Okay? But if you flip the picture up, somehow mom becomes wow. Yep.
Yeah, it's true.
And and suddenly those little things around Wendy's neck turn into satanic cryptic symbols. You gotta see this shit. You can't make this stuff. I promise you can't. The other one that we thought was kind of crazy. McDonald's,
the arches.
The arches. The original arches were red. They turned them yellow. Why? Amelia, tell them why.
Satanic, the arches for the gates of hell.
The color yellow in Satanism. Again, I can't make this up, folks. Please look it up. The symbol in the color yellow in Satanism is an invitation. Yeah, it's like come join us.
Yeah, come in.
You can't make flip the M, flip it upside down, and there's your W.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, welcome. This is stuff that people cannot make up.
And if you have a welcome mat, it's pretty much says welcome. If you have a welcome,
crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Let me do this, you guys, and we will come right back. I am up against a commercial, but it's Amelia's favorite commercial. So I know she gets all excited when she sees this, Dan. So just bear with me just a second. Here you go, folks. Watch it. Do you have sweaty balls? Or volleyball netty balls? It's time to make them ready balls. The Manscaped.com Lawnmower 3.0 will do the job and clean your knob with its patented no-nick head, so your head will function as desired. Enter promo code WrestlingFuture for a generous 20% discount. That's enter WrestlingFuture for a 20% discount. Manscaped.com and Wrestling with the Future, going balls to the walls with Manscaped.com and the Lawnmower 3.0. Your balls will thank you, and so will we.
Your customers expect to buy what they want, how they want. So you need a commerce platform that's flexible, customizable, and crazy fast. Shopify Plus is built to handle the complexity of your business, so you can focus on your brand and deliver a seamless customer experience across every device, country, and channel. Save time by turning manual tasks into powerful automated workflows. Target key markets with local currencies and unlimited storefronts. Increase conversion with personalized shopping and checkout experiences. And sell out in seconds, knowing we won't hold you back. Partner with the best commerce platform.
And we're back. WWTF Radio 88.7 BRS is global, and we are live around the world and on Armed Forces Radio all over the globe. Tonight, talking about hiding in plain sight. Hot damn, Amelia. If we couldn't hide in plain sight if we tried.
No,
But be our luck, we'd be found out.
right.
We'd be found out. I'm telling you, I tried to hide. I got too big a mouth. I give myself away.
Or
Anyway,
if it'd be
go ahead,
like,
Neil.
or if it'd be one of those, do not come in this door or do not enter, I'd be entering that door.
Yeah. Tell me don't do it. I'm going to fucking do it anyway. Watch me.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's what I like about Dan. You tell him don't do something, he's going to say, fuck you. I'm going to do it anyway.
Right?
But he'll be nice about it. He's not going to say F you because Dan's a nice guy. He don't say F you. He gives sign language. He goes, Dan, let me bring you up here. Because we love having you here.
Mhm.
One of the things we talked about, a cryptic symbolism and treasures and secrets hidden. Let's talk about one of the most glaring, sad. I have to refer to a sad day in American history, but it was a glaring moment when it was an aha moment for me when Building 7 came down in New York City. When the towers came down, and that was sad enough. That was a demolition. We know that now. But Building 7, which was 5.5 blocks north of the Twin Tower, was purported to have come down from the same. This is to show you how stupid they think everybody is. It was purported to come down from the same seismic activity that brought the towers down. Okay, there's only one problem: there was no seismic activity that day. That's number one. Number two, there weren't any airplanes that day. What we have to look at is Building 7 as its own entity. It came down. Why did it come down? Who brought that building down and for what purpose? Here's what we now know, that people in New York drove past that building every day. The United States Gold and Silver Exchange was in that building. The CIA, FBI, National Program Office, National Reconnaissance Office were all in that building, Building 7. It is now nothing but a memory. There's nothing there. Nothing will ever be built there again. Dan, talk to us about hiding in plain sight or destroying evidence in plain sight, as it were. What do you make of that? Is it a conspiracy nuts dream come true? Or do we have to take, the obliquio, how do I want to say this? The nonsenseness of the so-called conspiracy theorist out of it and start talking some real honest to goodness, truth here. because the truth is the building came down. The truth is everything I said is absolutely factually true. We know that these entities were in that building, and they're gone, or at least they're gone from that building anyway. How do we reconcile what we know as truth while there are still, and I hate to label people like this because I'm one of them, but we've been labeled conspiracy kooks for a long time. I've been labeled a conspiracy kook my whole life, ever since, I when Bobby Kennedy got shot. I said, Sirhan didn't do it. One of the cops did. And I was like a kid at the time. I was like 11, 12 years old when Bobby got shot back in 68, And so even at that time, I had enough sense to know, hey, this ain't right. You have a sense. I think people with knowledge, or what I call Gnostic wisdom, which I'm grateful. Thank you, higher power. I'm grateful that I have that Gnostic wisdom, because it separates the reality from the fantasy. It separates the cream from the milk. Talk to me about that day, that time, that building. What are your thoughts? What the fuck happened on that day?
There are so many things that bring us to questions about events like this. And conspiracy theories are denigrated and used to marginalize people because they believe in conspiracies or they think that this is true when they don't have any support for them. But, a conspiracy or a question about a conspiracy starts with the question. And the question is, what is true and what isn't true? So if you dismiss things that are characterized as conspiracy, you never get down the road to answering a question. You never get to gathering information with which you can document this or that. I could have been, as I've told you, I've mentioned before, I covered prisons for many years. I built source networks within prisons. And those people were operating in a way in which they were hidden in plain sight. There were inmate trustees and clerks who would gather documents for me and smuggle them outside of prison. And so I used those things to try to prove what inmates were saying about, say, human rights conditions. And the administration was saying that's just, rumor and innuendo, and none of that is true. So what we want to do, I think, when we hear a conspiracy theory is not just dismiss it. We want to take a look at what we can prove and what questions are unresolved. So when you're dealing with Building 7 and those things that happened, why did it collapse? What was going on in there? What else can we know? Our traditional media doesn't take us down those roads. Other people do. Other people who are willing to research more deeply and to be skeptical about the traditional story that may be told about this, or the story that people want us to believe for various reasons. But I think it's incumbent upon us all to consider questions of conspiracy so that we can get to the right answers.
I will tell you, Dan, that there were two pivotal moments on that day that stood out. An airplane allegedly crashing in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and an airplane crashing into the Pentagon. I have the footage of the Pentagon. I have the footage they want. Nobody will get that footage. We have the missile.
Yes.
And I showed it on air and was told don't ever show it again.
Oh, wow.
And I showed it 4 times after that.
Yes, you did.
Of the missile hitting the Pentagon. So no airplane hit the Pentagon. It broke my heart to have to show that, because I was one of those people who believed the narrative that hijackers, alleged hijackers, hijacked airplanes and were going to take over the government and blah blah blah. Well, it is literally blah 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 now, okay? Because it's all bullshit.
Yes.
Let's see here. Leon and Rosie say Giuliani, Bush, and Powell were behind 9/11. I'm not going to argue that point. Ruffian says, I stopped believing the narrative when they said they found the IDs of the hijackers. I'm with him on that one. Here's the other thing, though. I've been to Shanksville, Pennsylvania. There's nothing there, nothing even on that day that would indicate, even remotely indicate, that an airplane could hit where they say it hit. If you look at the footage on the news, it looks like a huge area. It's not, by any stretch of the imagination, at all a large area. By the way, no wreckage was ever found. No airplane ever hit Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Again, that was a missile. They had to detonate a missile there. Why? To show that something was there. Okay. To show something was there, they had to have some kind of collateral damage on the ground. But if you're going to say, well, an airplane crashed here, well, show me a wing or a prop or a motor or something that indicates that there's an airplane. Well, there was nothing ever recovered that even indicated an airplane. However, there were parts found that indicated missile parts. Okay. Because when something blows up, it doesn't completely blow up. It leaves shrapnel. It leaves little stuff, little memories for people to pick up and say, oh, look what I got. But that day at the Pentagon, that really broke my heart, because I was willing to believe that an airplane hit and it didn't, and it was a missile. And I have the video, and I've showed the video, and you can clearly see it's a missile coming in at low angle, this kind of trajectory, and it like literally flies in like this and right into that building. And by the way, it made a hole. Airplanes don't make holes.
No, they do
make
not.
whole buildings out. It made a hole. It made a 7-foot hole where you would expect. Where it entered, it blew a hole, and that was it. And it stopped there. Your thoughts on that, Dan?
Well, my instincts as an investigative reporter are this: if it was a missile and not an airplane, what happened to the airplane that took off with passengers on board? What happened to the people that were on board that plane? If those things are if there are photographs that demonstrate to us what is truly reliable, then we have to answer other questions. And until
I have the answers for you.
Until we answer them, we still have open speculation.
Well, I have some plausible answers for you. Answers that have corroboration with physical, tangible evidence. Many of those people were taken to Israel, where they have assumed other identities. You can change a lot about a person. You can change their face. There's certain things you can't change. You can't change your fingerprints. You can't change your voice, at least not significantly where it will alter a vocal spectrum analyzer. But we have proof with video, photographic evidence. We have eyewitness testimony from at least 2 pilots, that one of which was killed. 2 pilots that came forward and said that they were the pilots who took the airplanes there. One of those pilots has been assassinated. The people from Shanksville, it is said, again, they were brought overseas to assume new identities. Their families were offered substantial financial reward, benefits, to keep their mouths shut, or just to go about living your life. You'll see your loved one eventually. And that was what they were told. That's what we know. That's what we can prove. What I can't prove with any degree of certainty is how many of those people are still in Israel, how many of them indeed have had physical changes done to their body, either by cosmetic surgery or whatever the case may be. We, in the case of at least one such incident, we know that people who were aboard the space shuttle Columbia, or I believe that was called the Columbia, those people that purportedly died on that space
Right.
exploration did in fact not pass, but were all given new identities. We know factually that their families were all given financial compensation, including the family of Krista McCullough. We know that factually because they come forward and talked about it. They were very quickly shut up, and you never heard from them again after that. But people don't realize there's an escape chute
Oh yes.
on those shuttles, and it literally it's a giant slide. It slides right down. They were all off of that. That shuttle went up. There was nobody in it. There was not a soul aboard that shuttle. Your thoughts, Dan Lizader?
Well, I was standing in the newsroom of the Indianapolis Star watching television when the space shuttle exploded, and certainly that event shocked the nation and left a permanent scar on the abilities of NASA to conduct continued explorations. But I can't say one way or the other because I don't have direct personal knowledge and I haven't investigated those sorts of things. But I think that it worries me a little bit when we reach conclusions about things of that nature, because there is a destructive element to those ideas. If those conspiracy theories are wrong, there are real live people who are hurt
Absolutely.
by the repetition of ideas that may have no basis in fact. And so that's a worrisome matter for those who are insistent on certain aspects of conspiracy when there isn't definitive answers, when there are not definitive answers to those questions.
And that makes our job extraordinarily difficult at times. We are, as you, I am a journalist, I'm an investigator, but I also have to report this stuff in real time, sometimes as it happens. And most of the time, I have to investigative work with little to no lead. So I pick up the phone and start making calls, just like you would pick up the phone and start calling. And Amelia and I go on, overtime, double time, triple time, trying to figure out, all right, what do we have to do now? Do we dot our I's and cross our T's? We cannot go on the air unless. What do I always say, Amelia? We cannot go on the air unless we've dotted our I's, crossed our T's, and made sure that what we're saying is factually correct.
Correct.
Nothing comes back to us. It does not bite us on the ass. That's why I have no fear of repercussion. My life's an open book. I put it out there. There it is. You want me to prove it? I'll prove it. I prove it every time. You want to know if there's a video of a missile? Yeah, I'll show you. Boom, here we go.
We want to make sure it's
I was calling on all we want to see. Okay, you want to see it? Here you go. Be careful what you ask for. You might get it. You know?
But what we do is he wants to make sure that it's an actual true picture, a true video of an actual missile or whatever before we put it out there, that it's not false.
So how do you determine that? How do you resolve that question as to what is accurate in a video in this age when we see Photoshop things and things that are manipulated? How does the public know for sure?
Well, we know for sure because it was the Pentagon's camera.
Was it Pentagon?
We know that's how we know. We know because it came from the Pentagon.
No,
It's their video.
it's their
It's
video.
their video. The
Mhm.
one that they made sure. If you remember, Dan, if you remember when that story hit, okay, they showed you the front of the Pentagon. For the sake of demonstration, let me show you
Mhm.
something. I'm going to use this real quick. I'm going to use this pencil here for a minute.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm going to. Here comes the. This is what you saw in that video, and you saw this, and then it stopped, and then all you saw was this little boop at the end. You saw that, okay? In between the front and the back, what happened? Where'd it go? Where's that clip? I have that clip.
Mm-hmm.
I have the entire. I have from this angle, from back here. Here we go. We're going to follow the whole trajectory. Here we go. We're going to follow it all the way down. We got all of it. We got all of it. I will not go on the air with half information, half cocked, half informed. I can't do that.
No.
I'm not going. I'll sit on the story for 2-3 days. And that's about as long as I'll sit on the story. About 3 days, I think, is the longest I ever sat on the story.
That is true.
I'll sit on the story for a couple of days, and then I'm going to run with it. If I don't get any feedback or pushback, all systems a go.
Mm-hmm.
We got to roll. We got to roll because we have news to report. That's what we do. And I think we do a fair job of informing, and I think we do a fair job of telling, the government that we love our country, but we hate our government. And one thing, don't talk about hiding in plain sight. I would love the government to do something for me, okay? And I'm asking you as a personal favor, okay? So you guys are out there, just listen to me, okay? Let me come up this way. I rarely do this, but I'm going to put myself on the big camera, okay? I don't ask for much, okay? But I want you to do one thing for me, and I'll love you infinitely. Tell the truth.
I knew he was going to say that.
Just tell the truth. We can handle it. Contrary to what Jack Nicholson said, we can't handle the truth. I can handle the truth. Okay. Just be honest with us. I still love my country. I want to love my government again. I really do. I want to love my government, but I trust the government as much as the government trusts me. And that's a sad statement to make because that's how the government feels about its citizens. This government does not trust its citizens. That's a sad, sad state of affairs. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, another Tuesday night is wrapped up. Dan Lazzara, you are my brother from another mother. I love having you on the show, man.
Yes, we do.
You are always insightful, poignant. You get right to it with no BS in the middle. Just like a true journalist with integrity and grit and foresight and a set of steel balls like this.
Yes.
Well, you always raise interesting questions to discuss. That's for sure.
And we are going to have him back
you.
when he is done with the hamburger restaurant murders. I cannot wait because I read
Yes,
a little
we're
bit
on
about
that-
that. Yes.
That's at least a 3-parter. Are you kidding me? Please.
Mhm.
It's an
That's
interesting
at least
story.
it.
I was so intrigued when I read up on it. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
It goes
Oh, wait.
goes all the way from a little restaurant in Speedway, Indiana, to the
Yeah.
White House.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
People don't understand the gravity of that situation. If people understood, we have to do an entire show on what people think they know and what they know.
Yes.
Because what you think you know is
But
you don't
don't
know. Trust me, you don't know what you think you know, brother.
Right. And
It's
if
like the late John Lear, one of my heroes, the late John Lear,
Right.
whose father, Bill Lear, invented the Learjet. The late John Lear said, he looked right at the camera and said, he took his glasses off and said, folks, you don't know what you don't know. And when he said that, I was like, oh, fuck. Damn. Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
and if you want the government to be honest with you, we'd be here for years.
Look, I have to hold out hope, Neil.
Yeah, I
Jeez.
know.
Give
I
me
know.
something to hold on to, for crying
Well,
out loud. Well, listen, it's a Tuesday. Tomorrow night, we've got, who we got tomorrow night?
Tamara Thorne and
Alistair
Cross.
Cross, our
Yeah.
gothic horror authors. So
Yeah.
these guys are perfect for Halloween because they're both creepy. No,
He just-
they're good people.
And he messaged me just a few seconds before we went on the air. We're on tomorrow, right? I said, yes, you are.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let me tell you, Dan, I want you to promote yourself. What do you got? Facebook? Where can people get a hold of you? Read your books? How can they get a hold of your stuff?
You can find the books at Amazon.com or at Trying Day, the publisher of the Manchurian Journalist, or at Britain Publishing Company and Cincinnati for the Street Talk book. And I'm still working on my website, Angelo, danluzatter.com.
Well, listen, if you need any help with that website, let me know, brother. I'm kind of a whiz on that.
Yeah.
That end.
Well,
He
I'm
is
probably
really
doing
good.
it. I'll have to call you.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, for Amelia, the Pitbull Chapman, for Dan, the man Luzatter, my brother from another mother, I am the Mad Dog. We will see you tomorrow night, Lord willing, in the Creek Don't Rise with Alistair Cross and Tamara Thorne, and stories of spook and specter on Mischief Night. By God, we'll see you next time, folks. Take care. Good night.